Most people who heard the story afterward said it started like a patriotic fairy tale, the kind families tell at barbecues in July, sweet, wholesome, hopeful. But the truth is that it began with a lie so carefully woven it sounded like a love letter to America itself. And for a while, Emily Carmichael believed every word. Emily was the kind of woman who kept small American flags tucked in the corners of her apartment plants because she liked the cheerful color of them. She wrote letters to veterans she'd never met, signed petitions for community safety, and cried quietly during the national anthem at baseball games. USA loving, she jokingly called herself, but it wasn't a slogan. It was a sincerity, belief in goodness, in fairness, in people, in country, which made her the perfect target. The man called himself Daniel Reeves. His profile appeared one afternoon on a social group Emily followed, a page dedicated to supporting U.S. service members transitioning back to civilian life. Daniel's posts were simple updates about long days, or pictures of sunsets captioned, "Grateful to be home." His smile was gentle, a little tired, and the kind you'd expect from someone who'd seen hardship but hadn't lost his humanity. Emily reached out after one particular post. A short reflection Daniel wrote on how different America looked after spending years overseas. "Still the most beautiful place on earth," he wrote. "Still worth fighting for. Still feels like home." Something about it, the earnestness, the humility, the love for country pulled her in. They sent a few messages, nothing intense, just warm, casual conversation, touching on safe topics, favorite cities, holidays, food, music. He thanked her for supporting veterans like him, and she flushed with pride, grateful that someone noticed her small contributions. What Emily didn't know, what she had no reason to suspect, was that Daniel Reeves did not exist. The photos, the smile, the heartfelt reflections, all stolen, all assembled by someone who had studied exactly what people like Emily admired: kindness, patriotism, sacrifice. He played the part with perfect precision. Weeks passed, their conversations grew longer. Daniel said he lived only a few states away, but work kept him traveling. He never clarified what work, exactly. But he hinted at security contracting and classified projects, just vague enough to avoid scrutiny, just specific enough to sound noble. Emily told her friends she had met someone. Not in person, no, not yet. But soon, she insisted. He just needed to wrap up some obligations. They were happy for her. Emily had been alone for years, and Daniel sounded like the kind of man anyone would be lucky to find. The first crack appeared in a moment so small she nearly missed it. One night, Daniel claimed he was stuck in another state because his bank account had been flagged for unusual activity. He sounded embarrassed, apologetic, insistent that he would figure it out. Emily believed him, even felt sorry for him until, he said, almost in a whisper, "I hate to ask you this, but I need help getting home." Her heart tightened. She wanted to help him, of course she did, but something about the phrasing caught her off guard. She hesitated, which he must have sensed, because his tone softened immediately. "Forget I asked," he said. "It's humiliating enough that I'm in this situation. I should have known better than to bring it up." He apologized again, and then disappeared for a day. When he returned, his message was simple. "I'm sorry for making things weird. I care about you too much to risk losing you." Just like that, the tension dissolved. Emily assured him she wasn't upset, that things were okay. And she meant it. She just didn't like the idea of him struggling alone. So, when the conversation eventually circled back slowly, carefully to the same topic, she offered to help. "Just $300, he said. Enough to get his travel sorted and come home." She sent it. Afterward, she told herself it was just a hiccup, a small obstacle, on the way to something meaningful. She didn't know she had just stepped onto a slope so steep, almost no one escapes without falling hard. Because once she helped the first time, it became easier for him to ask again. A delayed flight, a missed paycheck, a sudden medical issue. Each request came with shame in his voice. Apologies heaped on apologies, promises he'd repay her the moment he was home. And every time she hesitated, he said just the right thing to soothe her doubt. "You're the only one I trust. We're in this together, right? I've never met someone who believes in me like you do." It wasn't the money that kept her giving. It was the connection, the imagined future, the way he made her feel chosen, special, valued. Her friends began to worry. They urged her to video call him, to meet in person, to verify something, anything. But Daniel always had a reason. Bad Wi-Fi, sensitive contracts, unexpected travel. "Don't you trust me?" he asked one night, the question sharp as a blade wrapped in velvet. Of course she did. Trust was practically stitched into her identity. Trust in people, trust in goodness, trust in America itself. And Daniel, with all his patriotism and tenderness, embodied everything she admired. But suspicion is a stubborn thing. Once it's planted, it grows. The turning point came 6 months into their relationship, on a cold November evening when Emily heard a knock at her door. She opened it to find her neighbor, Mrs. Ruiz, whose daughter worked in cybercrime enforcement. Word had somehow reached them about Emily's long-distance veteran boyfriend. They asked gentle questions, careful not to accuse. "Has he ever shown his face? Do you know where he really lives? Has he asked for money?" Emily defended him fiercely, almost angrily. She felt insulted, attacked. She insisted they didn't understand. And in that moment, she realized how deeply she'd dug herself into the story she wanted to believe. But later that night, when the glow of anger faded, she sat alone in her apartment and read through every conversation she and Daniel had ever had. She didn't want to find inconsistencies, but she did. Multiple ones. Small, sharp, undeniable. He repeated certain lines in the exact same wording, weeks apart. He avoided direct questions with practiced ease. He never mentioned family, never talked about childhood, never shared a single detail that couldn't have been copied from a public source. And the photos, she looked at them with new eyes. Pictures perfect in lighting, composition, angles, too perfect. Her heart pounded. She felt suddenly cold. So she searched. She typed his name and reverse image searched his photos. It took 30 seconds for her world to collapse. The man in the pictures had a different name, a different location, a different life. He was real, but he had never spoken to her. For several minutes she sat perfectly still, staring at the screen as if it were a living thing that had just betrayed her. When she finally stood, she felt dizzy, disconnected from her own body. She didn't call Daniel. She didn't message him. She simply disappeared, blocked him on every platform, disabled her accounts, turned off notifications, shut herself inside her apartment with her shame and grief and disbelief. But predators don't let their prey go that easily. He contacted her through new profiles, new numbers, new names. Each one sounding eerily like him, but claiming to be someone else. Some begged, some threatened. Some pretended to be friends of Daniel, insisting he was in trouble, and needed her. The tone shifted quickly from loving, to desperate, to angry, to cruel. The words she had once cherished became weapons. "You owed him more than this. He gave you everything. Do you know what happens to people who betray their country?" That last line stopped her cold. The manipulation wasn't just emotional anymore. It was patriotic coercion, twisted into something dark and grotesque. Someone had studied her so carefully, so precisely, they knew exactly which pressure points to push. The harassment escalated for days, until Emily finally broke and contacted the police. From there, everything moved quickly. Investigators traced the accounts back to an international fraud ring, notorious for targeting people with strong patriotic identities. They specialized in romantic manipulation, crafting personas that mirrored the victim's values so perfectly, it felt like destiny. Emily wasn't their only target. She wasn't even unusual. She was simply vulnerable in the exact way they needed. The authorities assured her she'd done the right thing. She cooperated fully, handing over every message, every screenshot, every detail. It felt like walking through a graveyard of her own decisions. The worst part wasn't the money though, she'd lost nearly $14,000. It wasn't even the fear, or the humiliation. It was the grieving. Because what she'd lost was not a man, but a dream. And dreams, once shattered, leave shards that cut long after the danger is gone. In the months that followed, Emily attended support groups for victims of online romance fraud. She listened to stories that echoed her own in heartbreaking ways. People from all backgrounds, all ages, all belief systems. Some had lost money, others had lost trust, and some had lost everything. Emily learned something crucial then. Vulnerability doesn't come from weakness, it comes from hope. And hopeful people are easy to love and easy to manipulate. She rebuilt her life slowly. She learned how to verify identities, how to recognize the early signs of emotional grooming, how to guard the parts of her heart that once swung wide open. She didn't lose her patriotism, she refused to let them take that from her. But she reshaped it into something grounded, balanced, informed. Months later, when she spoke publicly about her experience for the first time, she stood at a podium with her palms trembling and her voice steady. "I believed in the goodness of people," she said, "and someone used that belief against me. But I'm not ashamed of caring. I'm ashamed only that I didn't know how to protect myself. That's why I'm telling this story. Because someone out there is where I was trusting, hopeful, and completely unprepared for how expertly someone can twist those things into a weapon." She paused, looking at the crowd. Many nodded silently. Some wiped tears. "So here is what I learned. Loving your country is beautiful. Loving people is beautiful. But any love must be paired with caution, with verification, with boundaries. Because danger doesn't always knock on your door wearing a mask. Sometimes it arrives smiling, wrapped in flags and promises. Saying all the right things." Her voice cracked, then strengthened. "You can be patriotic, you can be kind, you can be open-hearted. Just don't confuse goodness with safety. And don't assume a shared value means a shared truth." After the event ended, a young woman approached her quietly and whispered, "Your story sounds like mine." "I didn't realize until now." Emily hugged her, understanding in a way no one else could. That night, as she walked home beneath a sky wide enough to hold both hope and warning, she realized the real lesson wasn't about fraud at all. It was about the price of believing without verifying, the risk of assuming without questioning, and the simple, sobering reality that even love for your country, beautiful as it is, can be used as bait by someone who knows how much it means to you. In the end, the story became not just a cautionary tale, but a reminder. Not all who say they love the same things you love have the same intentions. Not every patriot is honest. Not every smile is safe. And trust, once given freely, should be guarded fiercely. If this story touched your heart, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more stories like this.